Hey guys, today's video is all about mental health and carryover. As I have already explained numerous times on my channel, most things have way more than one effect, and many times the secondary effects of something even outweigh the primary effect. For example, if you meditate to get good at concentration, you might get more mindful and more calm way before your concentration is improved. So the other effects are stronger than the effect you aim for. And it is the same with mental health. We like to think of things as a one-on-one relationship of cause and effect, but that is rarely true. Most of the time, things have many effects, and today we learn why bad mental health is such a huge disaster for everyone who has it. But before we dive into the content illustrations that I have prepared, a small reminder of what carryover actually is. In principle, it states that all the things in the universe influence each other, and everything has an effect on everything else. It is just like that those effects can have rather small influences on other things. That said, it still matters as described by chaos theory and the butterfly effect. If you know those, the wings of the butterfly can cause a tornado on the other end of the world, pretty much. That is a rather neat way of illustrating it. And small effects can act as a lever and add up to something very big. And you can easily see that in this illustration that I have prepared. What we see here is pretty much the particle model of the universe. They are all the particles numbered from particle number 1 to particle number 2 to the power of 79, and they all influence each other. There are always forces influencing all other particles. And the closer the particles are together, the bigger the influence, but it never gets zero. And over time, all the current states of the particles influence all the future states of the particles. And this sets in motion a chain reaction of influences. It's as simple as that. And based on that, everything that exists must influence everything else that exists. And thus, carryover is such a big deal. Carryover is a supreme big effect on all of our lives. And I like to go into a map that I like to use to point out carryover and to point out the effects that, for example, mental health has. And what we see on this map are all the habits and things that people are interested when it comes to self-improvement. On the left side, there are beginner habits and things. In the middle, there are advanced things. And on the right, there are expert things, so to speak. And most people start with wanting to play video games, wanting to get better at dating, at music, or doing some instant gratification detoxes. But over time, their focus changes toward things that are necessary to achieve their primary goals. For example, if you lift weights and get a good nutrition, then you have a much easier time at instant gratification detoxes or dating. And after that, people likely focus more on the social aspects and on the health aspects and even the spiritual aspects of life. As they notice, well, lifting might be nice, and it's surely a good thing to do, but it does not solve the core problems of being a human. You need social interactions in most cases, and you need something that gives meaning to your life. And thus many people discover spirituality and create a family and things like that. And now we want to focus on the mental health aspect of this map and really try to get a good idea of all the different effects that mental health has. And those are quite profound and quite big. Mental health is based on the mind, and the mind influences everything. So when the mental health is bad, you can be quite sure that everything else suffers. And in this case, you might be wondering why some areas of this map are green. But this is simply because we tend to cope when we have bad feelings. For example, people who have bad mental health like to hide their bad mental health by covering it up with something else. They seek out a stronger, positive, sensual input to hide the bad feelings that was there before. And thus, people usually seek out casual hobbies that makes them forget about bad feelings. They listen to a lot of music, they play a lot of video games, they do a lot of unhealthy things that are usually related to instant gratification to cover up the pain that they have to face. But as a result, they focus less and less on those things that have a long-term positive effect. Some rare individuals suffer so bad from mental health that they discover spirituality and go on a quest and try to really fix the underlying problem of the bad mental health. And this is the only positive thing that might come from the suffering. The Buddha called it a divine messenger event. When we fear that we lose something, we either go mad and tend to drinking alcohol to numb ourselves down, or we try to look for a solution to the problem. And this is what the spiritual aspect of this map highlights. But apart from that, there is nothing positive that comes from bad mental health. In fact, things like your beauty or your hygiene and your fashion and your status all suffer from bad mental health. Your beauty will suffer to a great degree. If you put two faces together, one smiling and one sad looking, everyone will point out the happy face as better looking, for example. If you smile, you look much more attractive to other people. It is that simple. It can make a huge difference on a scale of 1 to 10. Simply by being unhappy, you make yourself more unattractive. People like people who are confident because it makes them feel good about the future, for example. And when you are in bad mental health, your social relationships will likely suffer and you won't go out as much anymore as before. And thus there's no real need to have a good sense of fashion or a good hygiene even. And many people neglect those areas too, and as a result, the status also tends to decrease. There are also many more influences on status, but those are also there, and they also negatively influence your status. And after that comes the physical areas of life that pretty much all suffer from bad mental health. If your mental health is bad, you won't like to lift or exercise because all your time pretty much has to be invested in instant gratification to cover up the pains and emotions and feelings you are currently confronted with. But lifting and weight loss and nutrition require a delay of gratification, and you can't do that if you are perceiving your mood as so bad that it needs immediate cover-up. So lifting or exercise in general are pretty much off the table. Weight loss is pretty off the table, and endurance training is also pretty much off the table. Your nutrition might also suffer because many people cope with bad emotions by eating bad things, and thus the weight loss also suffers to a great degree because eating sweets and drinking alcohol almost always negatively reflects on your physical health, on your weight, and on your nutrition in general. And many times we don't even notice the negative effects of that, as they take time to accumulate. So it can take up to 5 to 10 years of a really bad diet until the first really bad symptoms start showing. But it takes about the same amount of time to get rid of the bad qualities, of the bad physical traits that you ingrained over such a long time. And the next area that suffers is instant gratification detoxes and dating. As you rely on instant gratification to hide your pain, you simply can't just stop that, because then the negative feelings will overwhelm you. So instant gratification detoxes are pretty much off the table for a person with really bad mental health. They need their video games. They need, or they think they need, the scrolling, the social media, the 4chan, the Reddit, or whatever they do to hide their pains. And similarly, dating also suffers to a big degree, because dating requires a certain degree of confidence. It requires a certain perceived self-worth and other things. And when you spend all your time with instant gratification, you have no time for all the other areas that could benefit your dating. And as dating is also rather social, and people like to avoid people who are negative because it is contagious. That means that dating is pretty much off the table. Most people who are in a bad mental health state won't even try to find a partner, even though they generally value the idea and that they think, for example, that a partner would really contribute well to their mental health. And the next area that suffers is the career-related stuff. For example, your finances will suffer if you have no real incentive to work or to advance in your career because your mind is occupied by negativity. When 90% of your mind is occupied by bad mental health and thoughts about worry, thoughts about bad feelings and all those things, and you are deeply affected by them, then you can't really focus on your job. Then you can't excel in that area because you only have a tiny minority of your mental resources to solve the task at hand. If you have lots of negative thoughts, you can't direct those thoughts that could otherwise be directed at your job or at your university or at learning or anything like that. It's a simple matter of resource distribution. If everything is directed towards negativity, there's nothing really left for anything positive. It's rather simple. You can think about it as a pie chart. If you are negative, then the majority of the pie chart is simply occupied by negativity. It is rather simple. And if you think back to a point in time where you felt really down and really blue, you would certainly noticed that there was no incentive to do anything but to distract yourself. Watch series, maybe eat some ice cream or some sweets or anything like that. Everything but work. So everything that is work and career related suffers. Because work also requires a delay of gratification. And everything that requires a delay of gratification is not really an option when the mental health is bad. And after that comes confidence, discipline, and willpower. And those are pretty much all the result of all the small decisions we make in our everyday life. If we never use our discipline or our willpower, it will grow weak and fragile. If we never go against the grain, against the mind's tendency towards instant gratification, we never build up any willpower. Willpower is a result of denying our mind its wishes. And discipline is the result of repeated willpower application. So if you often deny your mind its immediate wishes, for example, and do something long-term positive instead of something short-term feel good, then you build up discipline. And confidence is pretty much the result of all the small good decisions we make. If we know that we behave in a way that benefits us and benefits other people, then the result will be confidence. The Buddha was very vocal on this. He said that one result of virtuous behavior is confidence before assemblies or public speaking, for example. If you really behave blameless, then there's no way that you could assume that you don't deserve confidence. So you will be very composed when you speak to others because you know that there's nothing wrong that you do. And the result of that is supreme confidence that is pretty much unshakable. But if you know that you do bad for you and bad for others, then you have no confidence because deep down you know that those things are rather negative. Anyway, so all those areas pretty much suffer from bad mental health. And now to the part that probably suffers greatly, and that is the social aspects of this map. Your partner, your friends, and even your family won't enjoy spending time with you as much as if your mental health was better. Because everyone deep down knows that emotions are contagious. So if you spend time with negative people, you will likely also be pulled down and not the other way around. Humans always have a negativity bias, as negative things in evolutionary contexts always required our immediate attention. So if you spend time with negative people, you synchronize with them and also become negative, unless there's a ratio of 7-1 or things like that, where there are 7 well mental health people and 1 person who suffers from mental health problems. And people with mental health often seek out other people who also have mental health problems, as we like to spend time with people who are similar to us and who understand us. But the problem is, we also adapt to them and become even more depressed and more reliant on instant gratification as a result. And that is really, really bad and something we should actually avoid. We should try to seek out people who do better for themselves and try to adapt to them and emulate their behaviors, because their behaviors led to good mental health and ours to bad. So we must have some mistake, have made some mistake in the past, otherwise we wouldn't be in that situation. It might not be our fault in the classical sense. We are not to blame, as we don't know that our behaviors caused bad mental health. But we should really make an effort to get out of the state. And then the last part of the negative map is mental health, health, meditation, and enlightenment. A person with bad mental health can't do the things that give positive health. So those two areas, mental health and physical health, are deeply intertwined. If we are in a bad mental health spot, we often develop physical symptoms. For example, when I had bad mental health as a child or as a teenager, I had chronic stomach cramps as a result. Those are psychosomatic, I think, and it always reflects bad on the physical health if your mental health suffers. And meditation, for example, requires all those skills of sense restraint, enduring, and delay of instant gratification, and that is pretty much off the table for most people with bad mental health. They can't see the benefit in them because they have to spend their time, or they perceive that they have to spend their time doing things that are immediately enjoyable. The worse your situation, the more you are reliant on instant gratification. And meditation is the supreme delay of instant gratification. And enlightenment is what meditation culminates in. And that is pretty much off the table for anyone who has bad mental health. And the gist of this big map is that you should really make sure that you don't let your mental health suffer. If there are the small everyday decisions that could lead to bad mental health, then maybe think again and not engage in all the partying and alcohol or things like that. Because you want to prepare your mind for good mental health to come. And you can even rephrase this map the other way around. you can look at the effects of good mental health. And this map is pretty much a reflection of the other map. It's not as deeply colored as the default state is, luckily, in this world, still with a rather good mental health. And I like to go by the population average as a point of reference. But everything pretty much profits from good mental health, except for video games. Maybe you will play less video games overall if your mental health is very good, because now you have other options. You don't need the immediate gratification anymore to feel good, because your default mode is feeling good. And then there's no real need to go for the video games and all the other unhealthy things anymore. There are obviously other entries like drugs that are also suffering to a degree. But overall, the gist is the instant gratification suffers a bit, gets a bit less, and everything else benefits. You can meditate suddenly. Your confidence will be much higher. You will have much more success at datings, and all your friends will enjoy spending time with you more, as also good emotions are contagious. It's not as strong as bad emotions, but it's still contagious, and people enjoy it. They feel good when they spend time with happy people. It is very simple, because all the emotions are always reflecting on other people. Okay, but from my own experience, I can confidently say that most of my problems boil down to bad emotions. When those become a chronic condition, it will reflect negatively on everything you do. No matter how talented you are by nature, if 90% of your mind is crowded by thoughts of worry or regret or remorse or fear, nothing will function as it should. It is so important that you take care of your mental health. I had such a phase in my life, and I can say that it was the least productive and happy time of my life that I ever experienced. And I can only encourage you from my own experience to really prepare for bad times. Not just deal with it when it arises, but also do things that protect you from it, that makes it more unlikely that such unfortunate states of mind will arise for you. But let us now come to the most important point. Bad mental health has the worst carryover score of all things. It is simply the worst thing you can imagine. There's nothing that beats mental health in its severity. Everything you do is influenced by the mind. And if something obstructs the mind, everything suffers from it. Take care of your mental health, or you can expect only decline in self-improvement. Any area of self-improvement will suffer if your mental health is bad. It is as simple as that. And you cannot expect productivity and growth if you misunderstand the importance of things. 90% negative thoughts and emotions lead to nothing but more problems. It is sadly as simple as that. It all boils down to mental resource distribution. And if 90% is bad, then only 10% is good. And that will surely only lead to decline. Anyway, that is pretty much it for today. I hope you can benefit from this information. If you do, well, feel free to like and subscribe. But until then, I wish you a pleasant day and